The massive Zelhari Imperial Dreadnought times, Eternal Dominion times, dropped out of hyperspace with a thunderous flash of blue light. Behind it came 12 more warships, each one bigger than most space stations. Their dark hulls gleamed with weapon ports and shield generators. The fleet's arrival sent shockwaves through the peaceful trade route near the Kepler system. Captain Minjun Park was drinking coffee in his small cargo ship times, Lucky Fortune times, when the alarms started screaming. His crew of 8 humans looked up from their card game and breakfast. Through the main window, they could see the Imperial fleet forming up in a battle line. "Well, that's new," said Engineer Kim So-ra, taking another bite of her toast. "Think they're here for us?" The ship's communication system crackled to life. A deep, threatening voice filled the bridge. "Unknown human vessels. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Zelhari Imperial Navy. You are ordered to cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction." The human crew looked at each other. Someone snorted with laughter. Then Kim So-ra started giggling. Within seconds, the entire bridge was filled with the sound of humans laughing. Captain Park wiped tears from his eyes and opened the communication channel. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Captain Park of the merchant vessel times Lucky Fortune **. We're just carrying farm supplies to the outer colonies. Is there some kind of problem?" On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Kethvar studied the small human ships on his screens. There were only 6 of them, tiny cargo vessels that looked like they could barely defend themselves against pirates. The Admiral's 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction. These would be easy prey. Thanks for watching. Human, you and your kind have been operating in Imperial space without proper authorization. The Great Zelhari Empire claims dominion over this sector and all trade routes within it. You will follow us to the capital world, where you will register your vessels and pay the required taxes. Captain Park scratched his head. The required taxes? How much are we talking about here? 50% of all cargo value, plus licensing fees of 1 million credits per vessel, plus a monthly protection fee, the Admiral replied smugly. The Empire is generous to allow you to continue trading at all. The laughter on the human bridge got even louder. Navigator Lee Jae-sung was actually holding his stomach and wheezing. 50%? Did he really just say 50%? Plus licensing and protection fees, added Communications Officer Chen Wei-ming. Don't forget the protection fees. Admiral Kethvar's translator was having trouble with the human responses. Their language seemed to contain a lot of strange sounds that his equipment couldn't properly interpret. Humans. Do you understand the generosity of this offer? Many species have been completely enslaved for less cooperation than what we're requesting from you. Captain Park managed to control his laughter long enough to respond. "Oh, we understand perfectly. Admiral, this is definitely a very generous offer. Could you give us maybe 24 hours to consider it? It's such a big decision. You understand. We need to contact our government." The Admiral's confidence grew. Fear was making them ask for time to surrender properly. This was exactly how it always went with new species. First shock, then desperate attempts to negotiate, then complete submission. "You have exactly 24 hours, Kethvar announced. Do not attempt to flee. Our sensors are watching every one of your primitive vessels. If you try to escape, we will demonstrate why the Zelhari Empire rules over 2,847 star systems." "We wouldn't dream of running away," Captain Park said, still fighting back laughter. "We'll definitely stay right here and consider your generous offer." The communication ended. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Kethvar felt very pleased with himself. Another species was about to join the Empire's vast collection of tributary races. The humans seemed appropriately intimidated, despite their strange noises. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "should we maintain full alert status?" "No need," the Admiral replied. "They're obviously terrified. Post a standard patrol watch. These humans will probably surrender within the hour, once they realize how hopeless their situation is. Back on the Time's Lucky Fortune asterisk, Captain Park activated the ship's secure communication system. The laughter had died down, but everyone still had big smiles on their faces. "This is Time's Lucky Fortune times to all human vessels in the area," he said quietly. Code 7 situation. Imperial first contact with ultimatum. They want 50% tribute plus fees. The responses came quickly from the other 5 cargo ships. Asterisk Golden Harvest times here. 50%? Are they serious? B. Asterisk Star Trader times checking in. Should we tell them what happened to the last empire that tried this? Asterisk Deep Space times ready. Are we doing this the easy way or the fun way? Captain Park looked at his crew. Engineer Kim was already bringing up hidden control panels that definitely weren't supposed to exist on a simple cargo ship. Navigator Lee was plotting jump coordinates that would take them to places not found on any public star charts. Communications. Officer Chen was sending coded messages to addresses that officially didn't exist. Let's give them the full 24 hours, Captain Park decided. Should we start the evacuation protocols for the civilian ships? Asked Kim. Already done, Chen replied. Every real merchant vessel in the area got the warning an hour ago. They're jumping to safe coordinates. Captain Park nodded and settled back in his chair. Outside the ship's window, the massive Imperial fleet continued its patrol. The Zelhari had no idea that their primitive cargo ships were already scanning their vessels, analyzing their weapons, and cataloging their weaknesses. You know, said Lee thoughtfully, I almost feel bad for them. They seem so confident. Don't feel too bad, Captain Park replied. The Empire has been enslaving species for 300 years. It's time someone taught them some manners. Engineer Kim brought up a holographic display showing the Imperial fleet's formation. Their shields are older technology. Weapons are powerful, but slow to target. And their communication system has at least 6 major security holes. Perfect, said Captain Park. Send all the data to Admiral Chen, and make sure to include recordings of their generous offer. She'll get a good laugh out of that. As the hours passed, the human merchants went about their normal routines. They cooked meals, played games, and maintained their equipment. To any observer, they looked like ordinary traders waiting nervously for their fate to be decided. The Zelhari had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in their empire's long history. 200 light-years away from the Kepler system, Admiral Sarah Chen was reviewing morning reports in her office aboard the massive battleship Times Terra's Shield asterisk. The ship was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, along with 300 other vessels of the Terran Defense Force's First Fleet. Her assistant, Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez, entered with a data pad and a cup of tea. Ma'am, we just received a Code 7 transmission from Captain Park's unit. Admiral Chen looked up from her reports. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but those who knew her understood that she had been protecting human space for 30 years. The Zelhari Empire? The Zelhari Empire. Yes, ma'am. They made contact with our merchant fleet near Kepler. Standard Imperial demands, 50% tribute, licensing fees, the usual. The Admiral sipped her tea and smiled. How long has it been since we had a proper first contact situation? About 18 months, ma'am. The Korthax Confederacy was the last one to try claiming human trade routes. Remind me how that ended? They're now our strongest allies in the Outer Rim, ma'am. Their ambassador sends you flowers every year on Liberation Day. Admiral Chen stood and walked to the large window that showed the secret fleet's operations. Hundreds of ships moved in perfect formation around the hidden base. Fighters practiced combat maneuvers, while massive carriers prepared for deployment. Everything looked peaceful, but it was the peace of a coiled spring. Lieutenant Commander, how many years has it been since we started the Quiet Observer program? 53 years, ma'am. We began full galactic intelligence gathering in 23. 87. The Admiral nodded. For over 50 years, human merchants had been traveling every trade route in the galaxy. They carried real cargo and made honest profits. But their true mission was gathering information. Every human trader was actually a trained intelligence officer with full military experience. "What do we know about the Zelhari Empire?" she asked. Rodriguez activated a holographic display that filled the room. They control 2,847 systems across the galactic southwest. Population approximately 400 billion across 17 different species. Military strength includes 12,000 major warships and 200,000 support vessels. "Impressive numbers," the Admiral said. "What else?" "Their society is based on tribute and slavery. They conquer new species and force them to provide resources and labor. According to our intelligence, they've completely enslaved 43 different civilizations in the past 3 centuries. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "Current threat level to human space?" "Minimal, ma'am. Their technology is approximately 80 years behind ours. Their ships are large but slow. Their weapons are powerful, but inaccurate. Most importantly, they have no idea that our merchant fleet consists of disguised military vessels." The Admiral walked to another display showing the human merchant network. Thousands of small ships were scattered across the galaxy, each one appearing to be a simple cargo vessel. In reality, they were the most advanced warships ever built. "How many of our ships are currently in Zelhari space?" she asked. "Approximately 400, ma'am. They've been mapping every Imperial military base, supply route, and communication hub for the past 15 years. We know more about their empire than they do." Admiral Chen smiled. "And our response capabilities?" Rodriguez pulled up another display. "All 6 fleets are at full readiness. The quantum tunnel network can have ships anywhere in the galaxy within 4 hours. Total force strength: 8,000 battleships, 15,000 cruisers, 45,000 destroyers, and 200,000 fighters. Hidden bases? 47 secret installations throughout the galaxy, ma'am. Each one appears to be an asteroid field or empty space. The Zelhari have actually sent survey ships past 3 of our largest bases without detecting anything." The Admiral returned to her desk and pulled up Captain Park's report. The man had done excellent work over the years. His cargo ship was actually a Times Phantom Asterisk class stealth destroyer with enough firepower to level a city. His crew were all veteran Special Forces operators who had been training for exactly this kind of situation. "What's our intelligence assessment of Admiral Kethvar?" she asked. "Typical Imperial officer, ma'am. Arrogant, overconfident, with no experience fighting actual military forces. His record shows easy victories against primitive species and unarmed civilians. He's never faced real resistance." Admiral Chen read through the tactical analysis. The Imperial fleet that was threatening Captain Park consisted of 13 ships with outdated shields and predictable weapon systems. Her people had been studying Zelhari military technology for decades. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said carefully, "should we implement the standard response protocol?" The Admiral considered this. The standard response protocol had been developed after years of dealing with aggressive empires. Step 1. Allow the enemy to make their threats. Step 2. Give them opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Step 3. Demonstrate overwhelming force. Step 4. Offer new terms based on human values. Not yet, she decided. Let's see how this develops. Captain Park has the situation under control for now. She activated her communication system and sent a coded message to all fleet commanders. Within minutes, responses came back from across the galaxy. Every human military unit was ready for immediate deployment. Rodriguez, start Phase 1 of Operation Revelation. I want every merchant ship in the galaxy ready to drop their disguises. And send a message to the civilian evacuation network. All real traders in Zelhari space Should move to safe zones immediately. Yes, ma'am. Should I alert the Alliance Council? The Alliance Council was made up of representatives from 47 different species that humans had secretly been protecting for decades. Most galactic civilizations had no idea that the reason they hadn't been conquered by various empires was because human ships were quietly patrolling their space. Not yet. Let's handle this ourselves first. If the Zelhari Empire wants to learn about human diplomatic methods, they can get a proper demonstration. Admiral Chen returned to the window and watched her fleet preparing for action. The ships looked peaceful as they moved through space, but each one carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The humans had spent a century preparing for this moment. Ma'am, Rodriguez said, there is one thing. Intelligence reports that several other empires are watching this situation. If we reveal our capabilities to the Zelhari, everyone will know. Intelligence. Noters. NECEV. NEC. The Admiral smiled. Good. It's time the galaxy learned the truth about humanity. We've been hiding long enough. She thought about all the species that were currently suffering under Imperial rule. The Kethai people who were forced to mine radioactive materials. The peaceful Veltar, whose children were taken as slaves. The Mordon, whose homeworld had been turned into a factory. Rodriguez, calculate deployment times for full galactic coverage. For what purpose, ma'am? It's time to end the Age of Empires. After we're finished with the Zelhari, we're going to have a conversation with every other species that thinks slavery and conquest are acceptable. The lieutenant commander smiled. Should I prepare the Liberation Fleet? All 6 Liberation Fleets. And, Rodriguez? Yes, ma'am? Send a personal message to Captain Park. Tell him that help is on the way, and that he has permission to stop pretending to be a helpless merchant. I think he'll enjoy that, ma'am. Admiral Chen sat back down at her desk and began writing new orders. The galaxy was about to change forever. 18 hours had passed since Admiral Kethvar delivered his ultimatum to the human merchants. The Imperial fleet maintained its position around the small cargo vessels, waiting for their inevitable surrender. The Admiral was growing impatient. Still no response from the humans? He asked his communications officer. No, sir. Their ships have remained in position, but they haven't transmitted any surrender terms. Admiral Kethvar's 4 eyes narrowed. Perhaps they need a proper demonstration of Imperial power. What other human vessels are in this sector? Long-range sensors show a mining station approximately 6 light hours away, sir. It appears to be extracting minerals from an asteroid field. The station shows approximately 200 human life signs. Perfect. The Admiral decided. We'll show the merchant ships what happens to those who defy the Empire. Set course for the mining station. Battle formation. The Imperial fleet turned and jumped to hyperspace, leaving only 2 ships to watch the human merchants. Admiral Kethvar was confident that a demonstration of power against helpless miners would convince the traders to surrender immediately. What the Admiral didn't know was that Station Deep Rock was commanded by Li Jae-sung, a man who had been waiting 20 years for this moment. When the Imperial fleet dropped out of hyperspace around his mining station, Commander Li was sitting in his office drinking coffee and reading technical reports. Commander, called his tactical officer, we have 13 Imperial warships taking aggressive positions around the station. They're demanding immediate surrender. Commander Li put down his coffee and walked to the command center. Through the main windows, he could see the massive Zelhari ships moving into attack formation. Their weapon ports were glowing, and their shields were active. Open a communication channel, he said calmly. Admiral Kethvar's face appeared on the main screen. Human Mining Facility. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zelhari Imperial Navy. You have 5 minutes to evacuate all personnel and surrender this station to Imperial control. Any resistance will result in your complete destruction. Commander Li scratched his chin thoughtfully. Admiral, we're just a simple mining operation. We're not bothering anyone. Is there some kind of problem? The problem is that you're operating in Imperial space without proper authorization. This system now belongs to the Zelhari Empire. You will abandon this facility immediately, or face the consequences. I see, Lee said. And if we refuse? Then we will demonstrate why the Empire has conquered nearly 3,000 star systems. The Admiral's voice was full of menace. Perhaps your merchant friends will learn from your example. Commander Lee looked around his command center. His miners were actually some of the best military specialists in the Terran Defense Force. The woman at the sensor station was a former fighter pilot. The man running communications had designed half of humanity's stealth technology. The chief engineer had helped build the quantum tunnel network. Admiral, could you give us maybe 30 minutes to evacuate our civilian personnel? Lee asked politely. You have 15 minutes, Kethvar replied. I'm feeling generous today. Much appreciated, Lee said, and closed the communication channel. All right, people, he announced to his crew. Civilian evacuation protocol is now in effect. Transfer all real miners to the emergency ships and get them to safe coordinates. Then, prepare for full defensive configuration. The command center became a hive of activity. The few actual civilian miners on the station were quickly escorted to small evacuation ships that launched immediately and jumped to safety. Admiral Kethvar watched them go and smiled. Fear was making them abandon their facility without even trying to fight. What the Admiral couldn't see was that Station Deep Rock was transforming. Hidden panels slid open to reveal weapon systems that shouldn't exist. Shield generators that had been disguised as mining equipment activated and created defensive barriers that could stop planetary bombardment. Communication arrays extended and began sending coded signals to coordinates throughout the galaxy. Commander, reported the tactical officer, all civilians are clear. We're receiving confirmation signals from Admiral Chen. The First Fleet is moving to support positions. Excellent, Lee replied. And our defensive systems? Fully active, sir. The station is now showing its true configuration. Commander Lee activated the external cameras and smiled. Station Deep Rock no longer looked like a simple mining facility. It now appeared to be exactly what it was. A fortress that could withstand anything the Imperial fleet could throw at it. Admiral Kethvar was studying his sensor readings with growing confusion. What happened to the mining station? AC. These readings don't make sense. Sir, his tactical officer reported nervously. The human facility seems to have changed. Our sensors are detecting weapon systems and shield generators that weren't there before. Impossible, the Admiral snapped. It's a mining station. Fire warning shots across their main structure. Show them we're serious. The Imperial flagship launched a spread of energy bolts that streaked toward the human station. The weapons struck Station Deep Rock's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed without leaving even a scorch mark. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, their shields just absorbed our weapons completely. No damage detected. Admiral Kethvar stared at his displays. That's impossible. The entire Imperial fleet opened fire on the station. Energy beams and explosive shells filled space with deadly light. For 30 seconds, the bombardment continued. When the weapons fire stopped, Station Deep Rock sat completely undamaged. Its shields hadn't even flickered. Admiral, Commander Lee's voice came over the communication channel. That was very impressive. Our shields recorded the energy output of your weapons for our analysis. Thank you for the data. How? Kethvar started to say, then stopped. His entire fleet had just fired everything they had at a mining station, and it hadn't even been scratched. Oh, and Admiral? On the Imperial flagship, alarms began screaming. The sensor officer's voice cracked with fear. Sir, we're detecting massive hyperspace signatures. Multiple fleets are jumping into the system. Space around the Imperial vessels filled with brilliant flashes of light. Ship after ship emerged from hyperspace. Sleek, deadly vessels that made the Imperial fleet look like children's toys. Within minutes, the Zelhari ships were completely surrounded by human warships. "Admiral Kethvar," came a new voice over the communication channel. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. I believe you've been making threats against our people." Admiral Kethvar looked at his tactical displays with growing horror. The humans had more than 200 ships surrounding his 13 vessels. Each human ship was smaller than his dreadnoughts, but his sensors were detecting weapon and shield signatures that were completely impossible. This can't be real," he whispered. "They're just merchants and miners." "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding," Admiral Chen replied. "Captain Park and Commander Lee work for me, as do about 4,000 other merchants and miners currently operating throughout your empire." The truth hit Admiral Kethvar like a physical blow. The humans hadn't been helpless traders at all. They were military scouts who had been watching the empire for years. And now, their real fleet had arrived. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely steady. "To talk," Admiral Chen said. "But first, you need to power down your weapons and shields. Consider it a gesture of good faith." Admiral Kethvar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at the human fleet with expressions of pure terror. They had no choice. The humans could destroy them in seconds if they wanted to. "Power down all systems," he ordered quietly. "Prepare for surrender." "Actually," Admiral Chen said, "we prefer to call it negotiation. Please stand by for transport. We have a lot to discuss." Space around the Imperial fleet filled with human ships, and Admiral Kethvar realized that his empire had just encountered something far more dangerous than another group of primitive aliens. They had found humanity. Admiral Sarah Chen materialized on the bridge of the Zelhari flagship in a shimmer of blue light. She was followed by 4 human marines in advanced combat armor, though their weapons remained holstered. The teleportation technology alone was enough to make Admiral Kethvar's crew step backward in shock. "Admiral Kethvar," Chen said politely, extending her hand. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person. I've been reading your military reports for years." The Zelhari admiral stared at the small human woman. She looked harmless enough, but the fact that she could teleport directly onto his ship made his 4 eyes widen with fear. "You've been reading our reports?" "Oh yes," Chen replied, looking around the bridge with professional interest. "Your conquest of the Veltar homeworld was particularly instructive. We learned a great deal about Imperial tactics from watching that operation." "Watching?" Kethvar repeated weakly. Admiral Chen activated a small device on her wrist, and a holographic display filled the air between them. It showed detailed maps of the entire Zelhari Empire, complete with fleet positions, supply routes, and communication networks. "We've had observer ships in your territory for 15 years, she explained. "Every major military installation, every supply depot, every command center. We know more about your empire than your own intelligence service does." Admiral Kethvar looked at the display with growing horror. The humans had mapped everything. Every secret base, every hidden fleet, every strategic resource. They had been completely infiltrated without ever knowing it. "What do you want?" "To give you an opportunity to do the right thing," Admiral Chen replied. "But first, let me show you something." She adjusted her device, and the holographic display changed. Now it showed real-time images from across the galaxy. Zelhari ships were being surrounded by human vessels at dozens of locations. Imperial fleets that had seemed invincible were finding themselves outnumbered and outgunned. "This is happening right now," Chen explained. "Every Zelhari military force in the galaxy is currently being contained by human ships. We're not attacking, we're just making sure everyone stays calm while we have this conversation." Admiral Kethvar watched his empire's fleets being neutralized with surgical precision. "How many ships do you have?" "Enough," Chen said simply. "Admiral, your empire controls 2,000, 847 systems. Did you ever wonder why you stopped expanding 30 years ago? We decided to consolidate our gains, Kethvar said, uncertainly. No, Chen corrected. You stopped expanding because every time you tried to conquer new territory, your fleets encountered mysterious technical failures, weapon malfunctions, shield collapses, communication breakdowns. Your military blamed it on equipment problems. The horrible truth was becoming clear. We've been protecting nearly 100 species from Imperial expansion for 3 decades, Admiral Chen confirmed. The Korthax Confederacy, the Mirdan Republic, the Free Worlds Alliance, they all exist because we stopped your fleets from reaching them. She adjusted the display again, showing Imperial slave worlds where human merchants had been secretly providing aid to resistance movements. We've also been helping the people you've already conquered. Medical supplies, communication equipment, weapons for freedom fighters, delivered by ships you thought were just harmless traders. Admiral Kethvar felt his worldview crumbling. The mighty Zelhari Empire hadn't been expanding because they were being secretly opposed by a species they had never even heard of. Why? 2. He asked. Why interfere with our affairs? Admiral Chen's expression hardened. Because slavery is wrong. Because conquering innocent people is wrong. Because building an empire on the suffering of others is wrong. She gestured, and the display showed images of imperial slave camps, conquered worlds stripped of resources, and species driven to near extinction by Zelhari exploitation. How many civilizations have you destroyed? How many billions have died in your labor camps? We brought order to the galaxy, Kethvar protested weakly. You brought suffering, Chen replied. But that ends today. She activated another function on her device, and the bridge filled with new images. These showed human fleets emerging from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. Massive ships that dwarfed even the largest Imperial dreadnoughts were dropping their stealth screens and revealing themselves. This is the Terran Defense Force, Admiral Chen announced. 6 full fleets, 270,000 ships, with bases in every sector of the galaxy. We've been preparing for this moment for 50 years. Admiral Kethvar stared at the overwhelming display of human military power. You're going to destroy us. End quote. Actually, no, Chen said, surprising him. We're going to give you a choice. Option 1. Continue your current policies and face the consequences. We will liberate every world you've conquered, free every slave, and reduce your empire to a single system. The Zelhari admiral swallowed hard. And option 2? Work with us to create a new galactic order based on cooperation instead of conquest. Help us establish a system where all species can develop freely without fear of being enslaved or destroyed. Chen gestured again, and the display showed peaceful worlds where different species traded and worked together. This is what the galaxy could look like. No empires built on slavery. No species living in fear of conquest. Just civilizations helping each other grow and prosper. You want us to give up everything we've built, Kethvar said. We want you to build something better, Chen corrected. Admiral, your people have impressive technology and organizational skills. Instead of using those abilities to conquer others, you could use them to explore new worlds, develop better technology, create art and literature that enriches the entire galaxy. She paused and looked directly into his 4 eyes. The choice is yours, but I should mention that every other species in the galaxy is watching this conversation. Several empires are already sending diplomats to Earth, hoping to negotiate their own transitions to the new system. 2. Admiral Kethvar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at the human displays with expressions of shock and fear. Everything they had believed about their empire's strength had been proven false. They were completely outmatched. How long do we have to decide? He asked. Your emperor has until tomorrow morning to contact me personally, Admiral Chen replied. If I don't hear from him by then, We begin liberation operations on all Imperial slave worlds. She deactivated her device and the holograms disappeared. Admiral, I want you to understand something. We're not your enemies. We're offering you a chance to join a better galaxy, but we will not allow the suffering of innocent people to continue. Admiral Chen nodded to her Marines, and they prepared for transport. One last thing, she said. Captain Park will be returning to his normal trade route tomorrow. I expect him to be treated with the respect due to any peaceful merchant. Is that understood? Traeger is Fane. Traeger is Fane. Traeger is Fane. Traeger is Fane 2-3. I one of the Testity. Traeger is Facity. Traeger is Facity. Traeger. Admiral Kethvar nodded weakly. Understood. Excellent. I'll be waiting for your Emperor's call. In a shimmer of blue light, the humans disappeared, leaving the Zelhari crew alone with the knowledge that their Empire's days of conquest were over. Outside the ship, the human fleet waited patiently for the galaxy to change forever. Emperor Zeth Mor of the Zelhari Empire sat in his golden throne room, staring at the communication device in his four-clawed hands. Around him, his advisors whispered nervously among themselves. The reports from Admiral Kethvar had been almost impossible to believe. A species called humans had surrounded every Imperial fleet in the galaxy. They had technology that made Zelhari warships look like primitive toys. They had been secretly operating in Imperial space for decades, mapping everything, helping resistance movements, protecting other species from conquest. And they were offering the Empire a choice. Your Majesty, said his military advisor, we should reject their demands. The Empire has never surrendered to anyone. The Empire has never faced anyone like this, replied his science advisor. The humans have demonstrated capabilities we can't match. Their shields, their weapons, their ships, everything is generations ahead of our technology. Emperor Zeth Mor looked at the tactical reports spread across his desk. Every major Imperial base was surrounded. Every fleet was outnumbered. The humans could destroy the entire Empire within hours if they chose to. What about the other empires? He asked. The Korthax Confederacy has already signed a cooperation agreement with Earth, his diplomatic advisor reported. So have the Mirdan Republic and the Free Worlds Alliance. The Vextai Empire sent surrender terms this morning. The Emperor rubbed his temples with his upper arms. In one day, the entire political structure of the galaxy had changed. Species that the Zelhari had considered primitive were revealing themselves to be allies of humanity. Empires that had seemed powerful were crumbling at the first sign of real opposition. Your Majesty, said the military advisor, we could fight. Our forces are still. Our forces are surrounded by ships that can vaporize moons, the Emperor interrupted. I've seen the tactical analysis. The humans destroyed an entire asteroid field just to demonstrate their weapons. They're not making threats. They're offering mercy. He stood and walked to the great window that showed the Imperial capital city. Millions of Zelhari lived and worked in the towers below. They had built a great civilization, but they had built it on the backs of conquered peoples. Contact Admiral Chen, he decided. Arrange a meeting. 6 hours later, Emperor Zeth Mor found himself aboard the human flagship times Terra's Shield Asterisk. The ship was larger than his own palace, and filled with technology he couldn't understand. Admiral Chen met him in a conference room that somehow managed to feel both impressive and welcoming. Your Majesty, she said, bowing slightly. Thank you for coming. I know this must be difficult. The Emperor looked around the room. The walls showed views of space where human and Zelhari ships floated peacefully together. Admiral Chen, my empire has ruled the galaxy for 300 years. We've conquered thousands of worlds. And you're telling me it's all over? Not over, Admiral Chen replied. Changed. Your Majesty, your people have accomplished incredible things. Your cities are beautiful. Your technology is impressive. Your culture has produced amazing art and literature. The problem isn't what you've built, it's how you've treated others. She activated a display that showed imperial slave worlds. These people could be your partners instead of your property. Their knowledge and skills could help the Empire grow in ways you've never imagined. You want us to free 43 conquered species, the Emperor said. I want you to make them allies, Admiral Chen corrected. Your Majesty. Earth tried conquest once. We nearly destroyed ourselves in global wars. We learned that cooperation works better than domination. The display changed to show human worlds where different species worked together. These are our colonies. Humans, Korthax, Mirdan, and dozens of other species, living and working side by side. Each world is stronger because of its diversity. Emperor Zethmor studied the images carefully. The mixed colonies were clearly prosperous. Their cities were larger and more advanced than anything in Zelhari space. You're saying we could have this instead of empire? You could have something better than empire, Admiral Chen said. You could have true leadership. Species would choose to work with you because they want to, not because they're forced to. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. What would happen to our people? The Zelhari have always been warriors and conquerors. The galaxy is huge, Admiral Chen replied. There are millions of unexplored worlds, countless scientific mysteries, endless opportunities for growth and discovery. Your people could lead exploration fleets, establish new colonies, make first contact with unknown civilizations. She gestured, and the display showed star maps marking unexplored regions. Imagine being remembered not as conquerors, but as the species that opened new frontiers for everyone. The Emperor felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, hope for a future different from the past. And if we refuse? Then we will liberate every imperial slave world. Admiral Chen said simply, your empire will be reduced to your home system, and you'll be watched to make sure you don't try to rebuild your military. It wouldn't be destruction, but it would be the end of Zelhari influence in the galaxy. Emperor Zethmor looked at the human admiral. She was offering his people a chance to transform their legacy from one of conquest to one of leadership. It would mean giving up everything they had built through force, but it might mean building something better. How do we begin? He asked. 3 months later, Captain Minjun Park was drinking coffee on the bridge of the Times Lucky Fortune Times as it approached the Zelhari capital world. But now his ship wasn't pretending to be a simple cargo vessel. It flew openly as a Terran Defense Force patrol ship, and it was escorted by 2 Zelhari cruisers. Captain, called his communications officer, we're receiving a greeting from the Imperial Fleet. They're offering an honor guard escort to the planet. Captain Park smiled. Accept their offer. It's nice to be treated with proper respect. Below them, the Zelhari homeworld was transforming. The slave camps had been closed and converted into schools and hospitals. Former conquered peoples were working alongside Zelhari as equals, building new cities and developing new technologies. Captain, said Engineer Kim. Sensors show 3 former Imperial fleets conducting joint exploration missions with human and Korthax vessels. The integration program seems to be working. Of course it's working, Captain Park replied. Turns out most people prefer cooperation to conquest. Who would have thought? On Earth, Admiral Chen was meeting with representatives from 47 species in the new Galactic Cooperation Council. The organization had replaced the old system of competing empires with a network of allies working together for mutual benefit. Admiral, said the Veltar representative, our people want to thank humanity again for our liberation. The healing of our homeworld is proceeding ahead of schedule. When quote, the Kethai colonies are showing remarkable recovery as well, added another delegate. Our children are growing up free for the first time in generations. Admiral Chen looked around the council chamber. Where once there had been fear and suspicion, now there was hope and partnership. It hadn't been easy. Some species had needed more convincing than others, but the new system was working. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various other descriptions, she announced. I have good news. The exploration fleet has discovered 17 new habitable worlds in the outer spiral. We have enough space and resources for everyone to grow and prosper. The chamber erupted in excited discussions as species began planning new colonies and joint ventures. Admiral Chen smiled and settled back in her chair. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And somewhere in space, human ships continued their ancient mission of protecting the innocent and ensuring that no species would ever again have to face conquest and slavery. The galaxy was finally free.